Have you ever opened Instagram at midnight just to check one notification and then somehow woken up an hour later feeling like your entire life is falling apart?
Oh my gosh, Sam, that is literally my Tuesday night. One minute I'm scrolling, the next minute I'm questioning every decision I've ever made.
Right? It's wild how a few photos can do that to us. And speaking of wild scrolling sessions, welcome back everyone to Channel Name. Today, we're not talking about grammar rules or vocabulary lists. Well, not only that. We're talking about something that touches almost everyone who owns a phone: comparing ourselves to people online.
And honestly, I think this episode might hit close to home for a lot of listeners. I know it does for me.
Same here. So let's just dive right in. Lily, be honest. When was the last time you compared yourself to someone on social media?
Yesterday, I saw a friend from university posting pictures from her trip to Bali, and I immediately looked around my apartment and thought, why am I sitting here eating instant noodles while she's watching the sunset on a beach?
That's such a relatable example. It's funny because logically, we know social media isn't real life, but emotionally, it still gets us every single time.
Exactly. There's actually a term for this. It's called social comparison. Basically, humans naturally compare themselves to others to figure out where they stand. It's not a new thing, but social media has just turned the volume way up.
That's a great way to put it, turning the volume up. Before phones, you'd compare yourself to your neighbors, your classmates, maybe your cousins at a family dinner. Now you're comparing yourself to thousands of people, most of whom you've never even met.
And they're usually showing you their absolute best moments. Nobody posts a picture of themselves crying in traffic or eating cereal for dinner because they're too tired to cook.
Speak for yourself. I've definitely considered posting that.
That would actually be a refreshing content, honestly.
Maybe that's the real gap in the market. Anyway, let's talk about why this comparison thing feels so intense. I think part of it is something called the highlight reel effect. People show you their highlight reel, their best 5 seconds, and you compare that to your behind-the-scenes footage, which includes all the boring, messy, unfiltered parts.
Yes, that phrase, highlight reel, is such a good way to describe it. It's like watching a movie trailer and assuming the whole film is that exciting the entire time.
Exactly, and trailers are edited to look perfect, just like most profiles online.
Can I share a story? So last year, I had this coworker, let's call her Nina, and Nina's Instagram made her life look like a constant vacation. New restaurants, new outfits, fancy coffee, cute dog. I used to look at her feed and think, how does she afford all this? Then one day, we actually talked at work, and she admitted she was stressed about money and barely sleeping because of a second job.
Wow, that's such a powerful example. So her online image and her real life were basically two different stories.
Completely different. And that moment really changed how I look at social media. Now, whenever I catch myself comparing, I try to remind myself I'm comparing my full story to someone else's highlight reel.
That's a great mindset shift. I actually read that this kind of comparison can affect our mental health pretty seriously. Studies have linked heavy social media use with increased anxiety, lower self-esteem, and even symptoms of depression, especially in younger users.
It makes sense, though. If you're constantly measuring your life against curated perfection, of course you're going to feel like you're falling short.
Right. And here's an interesting vocabulary word for our listeners: curated. When something is curated, it means it's carefully selected and arranged to look a certain way, like a museum curates paintings for an exhibition. Social media profiles are curated too, just with better lighting.
And a lot of filters.
So many filters. Honestly, some people look so different online that if you met them on the street, you might not even recognize them.
True story, actually. I once met someone from a dating app in person, and it took me a solid 10 seconds to realize it was actually him.
Oh no, Lily.
Oh, yes. Let's just say the filters were doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Doing a lot of heavy lifting. Great phrase for our learners, by the way. It means something is working really hard to support or fix a situation.
Exactly. And in this case, several apps were working overtime.
Let's shift gears for a moment because I think there's a whole other side to this we haven't touched yet. Comparing relationships. Have you noticed how couples online seem to be having the best time ever? Matching outfits, surprise flowers, perfectly written anniversary posts.
Oh, don't even get me started. I remember scrolling through my feed during a rough patch with an ex, and every single couple online seemed to be living some kind of fairy tale. It made me feel like something was seriously wrong with my relationship.
And were things actually that bad?
Honestly, looking back, no. We were just going through a normal rough patch, the kind every couple has. But at the time, comparing us to those perfect posts made it feel 10 times worse than it actually was.
That's such an honest answer. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it applies to friendships too, not just romantic relationships. You see people posting group trips, reunions, big celebrations, and if you weren't invited or you don't have a big friend group like that, it can sting.
Definitely. There's actually a term for that specific feeling. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. It's that anxious feeling that everyone else is having fun and living their best life, except you.
FOMO, such a useful expression for our learners. You could say, I felt so much FOMO when I saw my friends at that concert without me.
Exactly. Perfect example. And here's the tricky part. FOMO isn't really about the event itself, it's about the story we tell ourselves. We assume everyone there was having an amazing time, when in reality, someone in that photo was probably worried about their bus fare home or fighting with their partner 5 minutes before the picture was taken.
That's such a good point. We never see the full context, just a frozen, perfect second.
Right, and that frozen second becomes the story we believe, even though it's maybe 1% of what actually happened that day.
Okay, so we've talked about why comparison happens and why it can hurt us in friendships, relationships, even careers. But let's get practical. What can people actually do about it? Because I don't think the solution is just delete social media forever.
Right, that's not realistic for most people, especially since we use it for work, for staying in touch with family, for entertainment. So it's less about avoiding it completely and more about changing how we interact with it.
So what's your first tip?
My first tip is what I call the unfollow without guilt rule. If an account consistently makes you feel worse about yourself, even if it's a friend or a celebrity you admire, it's completely okay to unfollow or mute them. You don't owe anyone your attention.
I love that. You don't owe anyone your attention. That should be printed on a t-shirt.
Maybe our next project. What's your tip, Sam?
Mine is about timing. I noticed scrolling right before bed or right after waking up puts me in a really vulnerable mental state. So now I try to avoid social media in the first 30 minutes after waking up and the last 30 minutes before sleeping.
That's smart. Your brain isn't fully awake yet, or it's already tired, so it processes everything more emotionally and less logically.
Exactly. And here's a useful expression: to set boundaries. Setting boundaries means creating limits for yourself to protect your time, energy, or mental health. It's not just for relationships, it applies to technology too.
Great point. Another thing that's helped me is reminding myself of the difference between inspiration and comparison. Sometimes seeing someone's success can genuinely motivate you, but other times it just feels small. Learning to notice which one you're feeling is really powerful.
That's such a subtle but important distinction. Inspiration says, I could do that too. That's exciting. Comparison says, I'll never be as good as them. What's the point?
Exactly. Same event, two completely different internal reactions.
Let's talk about something else too. The comparison trap at work, not just in personal life. Have you ever compared your career to someone else's on LinkedIn?
Ugh, constantly. LinkedIn is basically a highlight reel with a suit and tie on. Everyone's thrilled to announce a promotion or a new job, and meanwhile, you're just sitting there wondering why your inbox is full of rejection emails.
Thrilled to announce. That phrase alone deserves its own episode.
Seriously. But here's the thing. Careers aren't a race, and definitely not a race where everyone starts at the same time or runs the same distance. Some people had more support early on, different opportunities, different challenges behind the scenes that we simply don't see.
That's such an important reminder. We're all running our own race at our own pace with our own obstacles.
Exactly. And speaking of obstacles, here's a fun fact for our listeners. Research shows that people are far more likely to post about achievements than failures, which creates a skewed, unrealistic view of what normal life looks like online.
Skewed is a great word here. It means something is distorted or not balanced, giving a false impression. So basically, social media gives us a skewed version of reality, mostly wins, rarely losses.
Right, and that skew can quietly convince us that everyone else has it figured out except us.
Which, of course, isn't true at all. Everyone's dealing with something behind closed doors.
Can I add one more personal story? Actually, let's make it a bit lighter this time.
Please, we need some comic relief after all this deep talk.
Okay, so my sister once posted this perfect birthday dinner photo. Candles, flowers, beautifully plated food. What people didn't see was that 30 seconds after that photo, the tablecloth caught fire because a candle tipped over.
Wait, what?
Yes, total chaos. Water everywhere, the dog barking, my dad yelling. But online, just a peaceful, elegant photo with the caption, "Grateful for another year."
That is honestly the most perfect metaphor for this entire episode. One photo, completely different reality.
Exactly. So next time you see a perfect picture online, just remember there might be a small fire happening just outside the frame.
I'm never going to look at birthday photos the same way again. Okay, let's wrap up the practical advice with one more idea, something I personally started this year. I began keeping a private list of my own wins, not to post online, just for myself. Small things too, finishing a task I was avoiding, having a good conversation, cooking a decent meal.
Ooh, I really like that. It's like building your own highlight reel, but for your eyes only, no filters needed.
Exactly. It shifts your focus from how do I look to others to how am I actually doing, based on my own standards.
That's such a healthy habit. Comparison pulls your attention outward, but real growth usually happens when you look inward. And honestly, one more small habit that's